Hello, I am Sam Harvey and I have not shown my screen. Okay, I am Sam Harvey from the Center for Career and Professional Development here at Pratt, and welcome to this week's Coffee and Conversations. Today we're going to be talking about mentorship and connection. Connection meaning those connections that are a little outside of traditional mentorship but are still going to be really important for you to have throughout your career. So this is connections and mentorship within your industry, really specifically focusing on that, though you really are going to have people inside your industry, outside of your industry, that are going to be important for you to talk throughout your career about what you want to do next, what you're thinking about things that happen that you need clarification about. The people in your industry are going to be able to talk to you from industry-based experiences, and then people outside of that industry can talk based off their own experiences. Oftentimes, it can be, yep, this is the norm for this industry. It could be, yeah, that's not the norm for the industry that the industry people can tell you. Other people can just kind of be a great backing board because sometimes we can end up with extreme visors over the sides of our face when it comes to our industries, and something weird might be going on or something good might be happening, and it's not something that's necessarily seen that way just because of your own personal vision of what you're seeing around you. All types of connections are going to be really important for moving forward and up within your chosen career paths. And these are people that are going to really be able to help you navigate that pathway. Throughout all of careers, the consistent sort of thing that keeps coming up is this idea that who you know is going to be important, because those are the people that can give you opportunities later. If nobody knows you and the person sitting next to you, everybody in the room knows and likes, that person has a much better chance of getting the opportunity than you do, not because they necessarily have any more skill sets, but because they've been able to prove to the people that are making the decision that they can do this job in ways that happen outside of just those application materials. So it's about finding people who can advocate for you, can help you figure out what else you can be doing, how you can get involved into this deeper industry. So I want to start by just talking about sort of the types of connections that I'm sort of generally talking about today. So as I mentioned, the main focus of today is on mentors, but there's also advisors and sponsors. Once more, these three are the people that are going to really help you as you move forward. I have on the breakdown, you can kind of see in the parentheses afterward what each of these kind of indicates, but there's a lot of overlap between them. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about the differences between them and what they are in different ways. So a mentor is someone who is more experienced than you that you trust to give you advice on your career. Mentorship can sound like a big word, or calling someone a mentor can sound really big and something you're not necessarily ready for. But a huge part of a mentor's responsibility in having a mentor is for them to help you get ready for those next steps in your career. So these are going to be the people you can talk to about good things that you have going on, the bad things going on, and sometimes the ugly things that you have going on, because they can help you figure out ways to clean up after a mess that's happened because of something that you overlooked, didn't realize. If you found yourself hitting a point of not knowing the next step to take, or wavering slightly and knowing what you want to do next, these are people you can confide in that are going to be invested in your career. And as I said, it can seem like a really big word, but mentors are people that are going to care about who you are and what your kind of plans are, and it's never too early to get it. It's not someone you need to be impressing consistently. They're going to probably be impressed by you at various times, but it's not necessarily about you being the perfect mentee for them to begin with. It's about what you're hoping to achieve and what time they're able to give to you and working with that. And I'll talk a lot more about that later on. An advisor is going to be similar in that they're going to be there to give you advice, but that relationship is going to be a little bit more casual than the mentor-mentee relationship. This could be someone you talk about potential career paths or that you have on a list when you're trying to make decisions, who you hit up sometimes for feedback, but they might not be always the first person you turn to. It could be when you're weighing a decision and want to get a lot of different perspectives on it, someone that you ask just, hey, you've been in this seat before. It can be a peer that you're like, hey, what would you do in this situation? Those are going to be people, and you're going to accrue over time people that you tend to talk to when you're making these types of big choices, the people who are your best sounding boards about what's going on, but they're not necessarily going to be the people you're going to when you forgot to tell someone the deadline and the deadline's tomorrow and they still are only halfway done with the thing that you need from them tomorrow, and how you deal with that. That's what a mentor can help with. An advisor is more of a like, I'm trying to take a next step. This is kind of where I'm interested in going. This is a company opening I've seen. Do you think that seems like a correct fit? Or you worked at this company, what's that type of fit like? So definitely a lot more of a casual question you go to them for. Now, a sponsor is someone who's going to work within your current company or institute. The mentor and advisor can also work in the company, but the sponsor specifically will work within that company. And this is someone that can advocate for you within this company. They'll be able to be in rooms where you aren't and to advocate for you in those spaces. So when the doors are closed, the upper level people are meeting, that's the person you want to be able to speak on your behalf in order to be like, yeah, this person should be getting the raise, or yes, this person should get that promotion, whatever it is that you're hoping to gain at that period of time. So it's really someone that can speak for you. Once more, your sponsor is going to be someone who you're working with and impressing over time, potentially someone that when you're first starting out, you've gone to for advice, but it's definitely more somebody that you want to talk to about your potential goals and how you can potentially reach them in this company so that they see you as someone who will be here for a long period of time. Sponsorship is definitely something you're going to want to look for more as you're ready to settle into a company for a longer time period, rather than if you're just like, this is maybe a 1 year, 2 year type position for me and then I'm going to go somewhere else. But when you're really finding the place that you're like, I want to work my way up in this company, that's when you're going to want to really start to find the people around you who can help that happen. So all of these could be one person. Your mentor is an advisor and could be your sponsor if they happen to work in the same company that you do. Your relationships with these people are going to change also throughout. Someone who was a sponsor at a job might become a mentor later. Your advisor might become a sponsor later. Some people are going to shift in and out of the roles where you see them in, and you're never going to sit down and be like, who are my advisors at this job? It's much more fluid than that, but it's sometimes helpful to lay it out this way. And all of these can be separate people as well. So the important thing is understanding that not everybody you meet and get advice from is going to be your mentor. But it doesn't mean that they're not interested in helping you through your career pathway. It's just going to take a different form. Just understanding what form this person is able to give me based off of their time and what's going to be the most helpful thing for you at this exact moment. You might not need advice. You might know exactly where you want to go and what you need to do next. That's when you might want to find a sponsor specifically. That's what's going to really dictate these types of things. So the rest of this is going to focus a little bit more on mentor relationships and establishing those, what those look like, but a little of this can probably be part of all of those types of relationships. So when and why would you want to find a mentor? So this can happen at any time in your career, and it's going to happen in cycles. You will have potentially more than one mentor depending on where things are going. You're probably going to have more than one mentor based off different positions you're in, different schools that you might go to. It's going to shift over time and depend on your needs. So right now, if you're a student seek out a mentor. If you're in your first job, seek out a mentor. It's never a bad time to connect with people to talk about your career in meaningful ways. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to pinpoint someone, like point them out of a crowd and be like, cool, that's my mentor now. There is definitely an intentionality that needs to come with it, but it's also about building up a relationship over time. So the people you don't realize could be mentors might be the people that are going to be perfect mentors for you. It's kind of about taking that moment to look at it and accepting what's already there potentially, or starting to reach out to build relationships so that they can get to the point that you're looking for. The biggest response I hear about mentorship, and I've touched on this already, is that you're not ready for it. Your portfolio is not perfect. Is it really, at this point, I'm only a second year student, is that really something that I should be looking for right now? It's not about finding someone to impress. It's about finding someone who can help guide your career forward. So when you're a student, it's about finding someone who might be able to help direct some of the classes that you take, what you take outside of your major. They might be able to direct you to internships or other professionals that they recommend you speak to. They are going to know this field so much better than you currently do that they can help teach you along the way. If you're an illustrator and you really, really want to get into doing sort of like op-ed pieces, they can talk to you a little bit more about that. Find someone who's doing that, start to talk to them about that. It might just be, hey, that was a one-off meeting, or you catch up with them every now and then, or you might be able to establish a longer-term relationship with that person where you check in more regularly, and regularly can be as little as once a month. It could be less than that depending on that person's availability, but just someone you can kind of turn to when you're starting to figure out your career and be like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. Does that sound feasible? Or do you have any ideas for how I might make this happen? Or, hey, here's a really cool thing that happened. Thank you for all of your help. It's just someone that can be there to help support you along this way with their own knowledge. So these people that you look to can be your bosses. They can be your coworkers. Definitely you would want to look for in a coworker someone who's a little bit more experienced than you are. They can be people in other areas of the company that you're in. Sure, you're over in the marketing department doing that, but you're really interested in the boss over in the user experience, user design department. That person might be a great person to talk to, even if you're not trying to get into user experience design. If you think they're cool, talk to them. They're also working within design as well. These can be classmates that were a few years older than you, alumni that graduated a couple years ago. These can be faculty members. These could be your parents' friends if they have people working in this industry. They can really come from anywhere. It doesn't have to come from an already established thing that's out there. It can be an artist that you really admire that you reach out to on social media, and potentially they're up for getting back to you and talking to you. It could be someone you meet at, if you go to any of the shows and events that happen around. It can be anybody, but it's about pinpointing that person and being intentional about really trying to set up times to talk to them, meet with them, and ask your questions about what's going on, and knowing that you aren't going to have questions every single week to ask them, and that's totally fine as well. It's about what you are going to need moving forward and what you need at that moment. Your needs as a student are going to be different than your needs as a new professional, and different than your needs as a mid-level professional. It might be the same person you have talking to throughout each of those periods. It might change up. It might be like, okay, cool, this person was great for this point in my life. Now I need to seek a mentor that's going to help with this portion of my life. It doesn't mean you don't still have the other mentor if you need to still talk to them, or your relationship with that person just changes a little and maybe they end up more of an advisor, and this other person becomes your main mentor. It's going to happen. It's fluid throughout your lifetime. So unlike your direct peers, friends, and family, you really are mainly looking for somebody who understands your industry and can help you guide you on that pathway. Your friends and family can be good advisors. They can be some of your best cheerleaders. But if your parents work in business or in the medical fields and you're trying to do a fine arts degree and work within the fine arts world, you're going to want to find people that are also in that field, because they'll be able to speak a lot more clearly to timelines of when things happen, how people are getting these types of positions, and what the internal workings look like. Okay, so how do you actually get a mentor then? So how do you do this? So start by figuring out what are your goals in having a mentor. It's always going to be nice to have a couple of things you want to talk about, and these can be really broad, such as finding out more about this industry and some of the inner workings of that. Sometimes that initial conversation will help lead you to more things. It can just be, I don't even know where to start. Can you recommend some resources for me? You start there, you check back with them in a month and be like, hey, thank you for these resources. Here's the questions I have after looking at those resources. Look for people whose work you appreciate, either their actual artwork or just the way they work, something about them that really sparks well with you. It could be that maybe you're in a department where you're a female and your boss identifies as male, and you're like, cool, this person's great, but then you see this really kick-ass woman over in another department and you're like, cool, she's running that department, I would love to talk to her. If you're going to go outside your department, it's always good to let your boss know, just like, hey, I think this person's really cool, I just want to find out more about them and their trajectory and all that, just so they don't feel like you're like trying to end up moving over to a different department or something, so you don't step on toes. It's going to depend on your work environment. But as I said, look for people that you think seem really interesting, that you think they have a level of expertise that might be able to guide you. Keep it realistic. So a famous person, probably not going to be your mentor unless you have a direct connection to them in some interesting way or another. But a popular artist, as I mentioned online, might be a potential, especially if they're mostly famous through the means of the internet. They're probably pretty regular people in their regular life, in their everyday life. It never hurts to message someone and just say, hey, this is who I am, this is where I am, I'd love to hear more about you and what you're doing, and then building it once more from there. So if it's someone you actively know, see if they have the chance to grab a coffee, if you can stop by their office hours, if they just have a time to touch base. It can be for an hour, even if it's over the phone, by starting by connecting with the person outside of the normal way that you might connect with them. So a faculty member, meeting them outside of class. If it's a coworker or your boss, meeting them after work, but kind of moving it from this is something we do as our planned time to get together, into okay, this is an extra thing we're looking at now. If it's not someone you know, you can send them a message on LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever social media they use to start this conversation. With a stranger, the worst thing that's going to happen is they won't reply. And with people you know, it's going to generally be about them having time in their schedule. You want to remember you're asking somebody to do something on top of their regular work duties as well. So you want to, one, make sure it's not a lot of heavy lifting. We can grab coffee near your office. It can be right where you are. I'll come to you. It's about finding times that can work for them. So not 9 o'clock at night necessarily, unless 9 o'clock at night is what works for them. And about making it easy. So have your questions ready to go and be ready for it. And the final thing is, just because you meet with someone once doesn't mean that they're your mentor already, or that they have to become a mentor. It's a two-way relationship, so they definitely need to be interested in taking on the deeper role, meaning if it feels like they're avoiding you, they might actually be, and that might be because they're not interested in taking on this role right now. They have other stuff going on, hopefully. I mean, also just generally reading social cues. If they seem awkward about the entire thing, it just might not be the right fit for them. And you could always ask them about it, of just, hey, like, I really was hoping to follow up about this. You seem busy. Is there another time that works? And once more, making sure that you're not making it hard on them to help you out. And if it turns out that after you have that one meeting, they're not really exactly going to be able to offer you what you are looking for, they're either not as experienced as you thought they were, they're level of their expertise isn't in the right direction for you, that's fine too. You thank them for meeting with you that one time. You don't necessarily need to plan to meet with them or check in with them again. But if it's something that goes really well and you are interested in pursuing that connection, it's about following up with them. So, okay, cool, thank you for giving me all this information. Would you be available to touch base again in a month? I'd say once a month is usually pretty regular for how often you would check in. It might be less than that at certain times. It might be more depending on the relationship, especially if it's someone you work with regularly. And seeing right then, like, can we meet up again in a month to talk over what I find? And they might not, they might be like, yeah, cool, let's put something on the calendar. Hey, email me. Yep, great. And then it's about just following up of figuring out, or if they're like, hey, yeah, like, just let me know when you want to schedule it. Reaching out, yeah, it can be a phone conversation, it can be something like that. And after you've met with them a couple times, you can just ask, like, I really appreciated the input that you've been able to give me. I would love to, like, be able to refer to you as my mentor if you would be okay with that. Or you can keep it casual and eventually it might just come out at some point that, like, yeah, that's my mentor. And I'll talk about that in a second as far as the long run of what these things look like. But it's about building that relationship and expectation of, okay, cool, you've given me this feedback. Now I'm going to go do something with that feedback. And when we touch base in a month, I'll be able to show you what I have done with that feedback, and we can figure out what the next steps from there might potentially be. And it might be like, you're doing great right now, keep me updated, in which case then you can just send them an email in a month to be like, hey, this is kind of what's going on. It's really about involving someone in the process of planning out your career in a much deeper way. Of just like, this is what I want to do, and once more proving I said I was going to do this thing, now I did the thing. Now what can I do next? Sorry, just kind of looking. Cool. So the long run of having a mentor. So just what you're going to want to consider. One is you're going to want to set some expectations. So setting up a formal mentorship relationship, so that's kind of asking them, like, can we make this a more formal, like, yes, can I call you my mentor? You want to know the boundaries. How often are you planning to check in with them? What do check-ins look like? Is a quick text going to be okay? Are there specific times that they really don't want you to contact them? Are there specific times that are better to contact them? Who reaches out to who? How much time are you going to have? What is these meetings going to look like so they can be productive? You want to know, is there specific things they need you to send them before you meet? Are you in charge of setting up agendas? Communication is going to be a really key aspect here. Is once more you kind of letting them know, this is what I am looking for, and them being able to see how that they can best give you what you're looking for in the ways that work for them. Sorry, lost my place. I think the other important part of that is also this idea of what are you looking for and continuing to communicate that, because that allows them to also be potentially doing things during that break time. So you say, oh, cool, I'm really interested in these things, that they might have to do a little bit of research on their own. So keeping those communications up so that you're not walking into meetings going, hi, cool, so you're going to tell me about this thing, and they're like, oh, I don't actually know as much about that. So once more, two-way street, communication is key. Sometimes you're going to end up also in a less formal mentorship situation. So the person might be really busy, or you're not comfortable making the official ask, or whatever reason it is, there's not an official, like, yes, I am your mentor, yes, you are my mentee conversation. In these cases, if you're meeting regularly, they probably still count as a mentor. Make it super easy for these people. So especially if someone's really busy, so you don't always get the chance to have that formal sit down, go to their offices, walk with them between meetings, ask small questions along the way, shoot them quick emails. It's not going to be a formal relationship, but this person is going to, one, you're going to be someone that pops up as like, oh, this person's asking another really great question. Yes, let me take a minute to respond to them, or we can set up coffee or whatever. And then this is someone who will also be able to speak on your behalf, even if they're not as regularly meeting with you to do things. You're going to be someone that stands out in their mind, and when they're looking for people to fill specific roles, your name will still be something that potentially comes up in that conversation, because of the small interactions you've had with this person. Really, it's about what is your question, how can you ask it quickly, and what can they get you back. So it might not be having as long like philosophical conversations as you might have during a regular sit down with a more official mentor, but it can still be really helpful for just quick things of, oh, I'm doing some research into this specific area. Do you have any recommendations for me? Cool, thank you. I will follow up on that. Quick conversations, get it to the point, moving on from there. And remember to always give back to your mentors. So they're going to spend a lot of free time helping you. So when they ask you for something, check in, do the thing that they ask you for. Make sure you also take time to check in on how they're doing in general. Oh, how are your kids? How are your parents? How was your trip wherever? And thank them for the time that they give you. It's going to be really important to just make sure that they feel appreciated, because that's also going to make them feel like the work that they're doing isn't just being overlooked as well, that you are someone that might be in a position to help them out one day as well. And say, always going back, every relationship, especially professionals and personal as well, it's always a two-way street, and it's not necessarily all about personal gain, but understanding that like you can trust someone to be able to hold you up later on. It's really important part of that relationship, especially because often mentors will be able to open doors for you, and they want to trust that you will walk through the doors or have a conversation about why you don't want that door opened in the first place before they end up doing that. Just always remember in terms of mentorship that nobody else ever has to support your career. So it's always just best to acknowledge when somebody does, and to once more keep your communication open with them. And also know that you're also worth somebody else caring about your career. Because once more, I know it's a big issue within the mentorship thing. It sounds really big and that you're not ready, but you're ready, and you're going to find someone that's really going to be excited to guide you along your pathway and to answer your questions. And that's really it. Find someone that can help answer the questions that you have about this industry, because that's the best way to learn about the industry, is by the people doing it. Okay. So, as always, feel free to reach out to me on email, and have a great day.